The polished brass elevator doors slid open with a soft sigh, revealing a shimmering expanse of glass and light. The rooftop of the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Phoenix was transformed. Golden ribbons of light wrapped around each column, banquet tables draped in pristine white linen held imported flowers, and a jazz ensemble played melodies that mingled with the delicate clinking of glasses. From the outside, it was proof of love, a dazzling display from a powerful family honoring their son. For me, Ethan, it felt more like a stage set for a performance I hadn't rehearsed, every flickering candle a potential fuse. I was 23, fresh out of the University of Arizona at Tucson with a degree in environmental science. For years of grinding through lab work, field research, and professors who thought sleep was optional. This should have been the best day of my life, the moment I finally proved I was worth something. Yet, as I took in the extravagant scene, a cold knot formed in my stomach. Nothing in my family, the Hayes family, was ever what it seemed. Most of the guests were familiar faces from the Arizona business world, my father Richard's partners, sharply dressed executives from Hayes Therapeutics, high-powered attorneys who had served our family for years, even a few reporters from local business magazines. Among this sea of polite strangers, only a handful of people truly belonged to me. My friends, Noah and Chloe, looking slightly out of place in their more casual suits, hurried over and wrapped me in congratulations. I forced a smile, silently grateful I wasn't completely alone. As I spoke with them, I could feel my parents' eyes on me, fixed, never wavering. Their presence pressed down like two hawks circling prey, watching my every movement, every word. Their smiles were plastered on, but the stiffness around Catherine's lips and the calculating glint in Richard's eyes told a different story. I caught a glimpse of my father leaning in to whisper something to Robert, the company's longtime attorney. Robert nodded, then glanced at me with that sharp, appraising look, the kind reserved for an item about to go up for auction. A shiver ran through me. If Robert was here tonight, it wasn't just to celebrate my graduation. This grand celebration was a stark contrast to just 2 weeks prior. My parents had called me useless, said my degree was worthless, said I'd never bring honor to the family name. And now, this opulent party. It just didn't add up. My father, Richard Hayes, was the CEO of Hayes Therapeutics, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in Arizona. His face was often on business magazines, speaking at fancy conferences about innovation and corporate responsibility. A complete fraud, I knew. Behind closed doors, he was cold, calculating, viewing everything through the lens of profit. To him, Liam and I weren't sons, we were investments, assets to be managed. My mother, Catherine, came from old money, her family deeply entrenched in medicine for generations. She believed reputation and status mattered above all else, the kind of woman who spent more on a single charity gala dress than most families spent on groceries in a year. Every public appearance was curated, every smile calculated. And then there was Liam, my younger brother, 20 years old, already being groomed to take over the company. A junior at Yale studying business, Dean's List every semester, fast-tracked for a management position the second he graduated. At every party, every photo shoot, my mother introduced him as the rightful heir to the Hayes legacy. Me? I was just Ethan, the older son who chose the wrong path. The disappointment who studied environmental science instead of business, who, in their eyes, would never amount to anything. Liam appeared at my side, smiling radiantly as always. He lifted his glass and tapped me lightly on the shoulder. So, since everyone keeps asking me about your plans after graduation, he laughed, why are they so obsessed with that? Mom and Dad keep bringing it up over and over. I looked at his face, radiant and confident, completely unaware of the intricate web of our parents' schemes. He still saw me as the distant older brother, never the enemy. They probably just want to make sure I'll do the right thing for the family, I forced a smile. Liam frowned. But isn't this your moment? Why aren't they asking if you're happy? That simple question pierced me. I turned away, sipping my water to avoid answering. When I looked back, I caught Catherine's stare fixed on me, her smile stiff as wax. She stood among a cluster of society women, her glass shimmering, yet her attention never wavered from my every move. I drew in a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Every sense was on high alert. I knew I was standing in the predator's arena, and I was the prey. The laughter and chatter faded into a distant hum, leaving only the pounding of my heartbeat. This feeling of being an outsider, a lesser son, started early. I remembered middle school, coming home with a silver medal from a cross-country competition, excited for congratulations. Instead, I found my parents celebrating Liam being selected to perform piano at some community event. My father glanced at my medal for half a second before saying, "That's nice, but running won't help your career, son." My mother didn't even look up from the outfit she was picking out for Liam. That's when I learned the rules. Recognition wasn't something I could earn, it was reserved for Liam, always. High school only solidified it. Liam was the star. Debate team captain, tennis champion, straight A's. His achievements were celebrated with parties, photos, local newspaper articles. The walls of our house were covered with his trophies. My straight A's and science awards went into a drawer somewhere, out of sight. The one time my mother showed up to an event of mine was when I won first place in the state science fair for research on antibiotic contamination in local water sources. I was desperate for approval. But when I was handed the award, she leaned close and whispered, "You look so sloppy, like you don't belong here." That killed whatever joy I had. My parents never asked what I wanted to do. They had decided Ethan would study pharmaceuticals, join the company, work as a researcher to support Liam's leadership. My dreams of environmental science were dismissed as nonsense. When I got into the University of Arizona for environmental studies, Richard threatened to cut off all financial support. It was only thanks to scholarships and student loans that I managed to hold my ground. I spent most of my life thinking I was born just to be Liam's backdrop. He stood in the bright lights, I waited in the shadows for a glance of recognition that never came. My grandmother, Ruth, was the only light in those dark years. Ironically, she was my father's mother, a former chemist who had been one of Arizona's most brilliant researchers. Her work had laid the foundation for developing new pharmaceutical compounds, what allowed Hayes Therapeutics to launch. But in every company history book, her name was nowhere to be found. They erased her completely. When I was 15, she showed me notes of formulas that led to the very first pain relief drug the company used. "They took my work," she said with a sad smile. Then they erased my name from every certificate, every photograph because I was a woman. Back then, people didn't believe women could stand equal to men in the lab. Her eyes, however, held a fierce spark. Never let anyone say your passion is meaningless. If you love the environment, follow it. Don't become anyone's shadow. What my parents didn't know until it was too late was that Grandma Ruth had prepared a secret gift. She had quietly established a trust fund worth $8 million in my name alone. It would be released once I graduated or turned 25. A key to my escape. I learned about it when I was 16, shortly before she passed. "Ethan," she said, holding my hand, "I won't let you spend your life trapped in this cycle of injustice. Promise me, no matter what happens, you'll follow the path you choose. Don't let anyone buy you off or force you into submission." I didn't fully understand, but I nodded. My parents knew nothing until 3 months before graduation. During a company meeting about family finances, the firm's attorney accidentally mentioned a special account. My father's face strained, my mother's eyes hardened. From that moment, their contempt for me morphed into quiet hostility. They understood that with that inheritance, I'd be completely independent, a real threat, someone who could even stand against them. But that wasn't all. Combined with what I was about to discover about their company's illegal activities, I had become someone they needed to eliminate. I discovered the toxic dumping during my final semester, joining a field research project along the Gila River. It was routine at first, collecting water and sediment samples. But then, alarming irregularities, mercury and lead levels far exceeding EPA safety standards. And traces of pharmaceutical compounds, synthetic molecules only found in untreated wastewater from drug manufacturing plants. When I reported my findings to my supervising professor, he nodded, confirming suspicions but lacking conclusive data. The thought hit me, Could it be my own father's company? I devoted more time, tracking the current to an industrial complex marked South Facility, Hayes Therapeutics. Everything pointed back at my family. I compared public reports on wastewater treatment, which looked too perfect to be true. I secretly took photos, stored sample data, recorded everything. Day by day, the evidence mounted. I detected dangerously high concentrations of an experimental compound, project code R17, cyclopentylamine derivative 47, not yet on standard testing lists, but present in the company's internal research documents. My stomach twisted. If I went public, it would be like turning a weapon on my own bloodline. But then Grandma Ruth's words echoed, "Never let anyone decide your worth." I decided to confront them. One evening at dinner, I spread the printed test results across the table. I know what the company is doing at the South Facility. I have data. I have evidence. If you don't stop the illegal dumping, I will report it. Silence. Richard's eyes were sharp as blades. Catherine's lips were tight. Liam looked shaken. "You don't understand what you're saying, Ethan," my father said, low and cold. "This family survives because of silence." "Silence isn't family." "Silence is complicity," I replied, not bowing my head for the first time. I knew there was no return. I began collecting everything: duplicate datasets, photos, meticulous logs, stored on an encrypted drive. A few days before graduation, their tone changed completely. Catherine called more, asking about my favorite flowers and dishes for the dinner. Richard even sent a text, "Congratulations in advance. You've done something good." A chill ran down my spine. My father had never praised me. This change didn't comfort, it only made me more suspicious. They said they would throw a grand party on the Ritz-Carlton rooftop. "You deserve a celebration worthy of you," my mother cooed, sugary sweet. I forced a polite smile. I knew nothing my parents did ever came without strings attached. In those final days, I buried myself in my research files, preparing a plan to protect myself. One copy of the environmental data at the university, another on my personal drive, a third with my supervising professor, just in case I happened to disappear. One evening, I overheard a heated argument from my father's study. Catherine's voice, full of worry: "Richard, are you sure this is necessary? What if someone finds out?" My father, low and sharp: "Don't you get it? He already has enough evidence. Add the inheritance on top of that, and he'll never depend on us. He could bring the whole company down." Catherine's voice trembled: "But he's our son." Richard cut her off: "He's a threat. The FDA has already begun a quiet investigation. If Ethan speaks, we lose everything." I held my breath, heart pounding. Then his voice dropped lower, but I still heard it: "The plan is just to make him sick for a few days. Get him hospitalized. During that time, we'll take care of the paperwork, cover the records. If the worst happens, if he passes before the trust is released, the money reverts back to us. That's the law." I stood frozen, cold sweat breaking out. My own parents were plotting to end my life. And it wasn't just about the $8 million. It was about silencing the truth about the South Facility. I wanted to scream, but a voice whispered, "If they know you've heard, they'll find another way, something worse." I stepped back, forced myself to return to the living room, pretending nothing. That evening, Liam chatted cheerfully about his summer internship, completely unaware. It struck me, Liam wasn't part of their plotting. Part of me resented him, but another part wanted to protect him. I knew everything would explode soon, and I had to be ready. The party entered its most formal stage. My parents hadn't taken their eyes off me. Every movement I made was under a microscope. My father suddenly picked up a bottle of sparkling cider. Servers poured for guests, but when they reached our table, Richard insisted on doing it himself. "A nice personal touch," he announced, with a smooth smile, "for my graduate son." He filled my glass and set it in front of me. I watched Catherine lean forward, pretending to adjust the napkin, but I caught it, the quick, almost imperceptible movement of her hand over my glass, the faint shimmer of powder dissolving into the golden liquid. My heartbeat thundered. The words I had overheard rushed back, just enough to make him sick, hospitalized for a few days, time to shift the assets. My throat went dry, but I kept my smile calm, unshaken. I glanced around. Catherine chatted with the women beside her, though her eyes never left me. Richard raised his glass, waiting for me to follow. In that tense instant, I leaned slightly and tapped Noah's hand beneath the table. He looked up, met my eyes, a plea and resolve there. My lips barely moved. Record this. Record everything. Noah gave the faintest nod, discreetly sliding his phone out, placing it on his lap, camera rolling towards the table. To Ethan, my father declared, his voice booming. Guests echoed the cheer. I lifted my glass. Liam, beside me, smiled brightly, glowing with pride, no suspicion. He'd never glimpsed their dark side. Richard's eyes flashed, urging me to drink. I drew a steady breath, then turned suddenly to Liam, my voice soft, warm. My dear brother, today isn't just my day. You've always been there, encouraging me. I want to share this moment with you. I smiled and handed him my glass. Guests clapped, believing it a sweet gesture. Oh, Ethan, you're amazing, Liam exclaimed, voice brimming with emotion. He took the glass without a shred of doubt. I quickly lifted his glass, the clear, safe one, and brought it to my lips. In that instant, my parents went pale. The color drained from their faces. Catherine stammered, half reaching out, but it was too late. In front of dozens of guests, and the phones already recording, they couldn't do a thing. Liam tilted his head back and drank in one long sip. Delicious, he said with a carefree laugh, utterly unaware. The music swelled. Guests returned to conversations. Out of my eye, I saw my parents frozen. Forced smiles, trembling hands. Robert bent low, whispering, his face betraying panic. I set my glass down gently and smiled calmly. Under the table, I gripped Noah's hand. The camera was still rolling, capturing it all, the switch, the terror in their eyes. I lowered my head and whispered, just loud enough for Noah, the evidence is sealed now. They'll have to play by my rules. The rooftop buzzed. Jazz, clinking glasses, laughter. My face serene, though my heart pounded. I had just done something so daring. I had passed the glass to Liam, and now all I could do was wait. The first 10 minutes passed without incident. Liam laughed, shook hands, even boasted about being entrusted with bigger responsibilities at the company. I watched. Every time my parents' eyes flicked toward Liam, I saw the tension behind their forced smiles. The tight press of their lips. They were afraid. And then, about 10 minutes later, the change began. Liam, always composed, suddenly placed a hand over his chest, his face strained. Are you okay? A friend asked as he swayed. Just a little dizzy, Liam murmured, a fragile smile. But within a minute, cold sweat poured down. His face turned ghostly pale. My heart clenched. No matter how bitter I felt, seeing Liam suffer stung. But then memories flooded, his undeserved credit, my parents' favoritism. And tonight, this poison was meant for me. My heart is racing too fast, Liam gasped before collapsing onto the floor. Screams erupted. Guests panicked. Call 911, someone yelled. Get an ambulance now. I rushed forward, kneeling beside Liam. Strangely, I was calmer than anyone else. Amid the chaos, I leaned close to Noah. Send the video now. Back it up to the cloud. Don't let it get lost. Noah nodded rapidly, hands trembling but firm, securing the evidence. The wail of ambulance sirens cut through the Phoenix night. Paramedics rushed onto the rooftop. Liam was laid down, face ghostly pale, eyes fluttering. He's struggling to breathe. Heart arrhythmia, a medic shouted. We need to get him to the hospital immediately. I stepped forward, gaze steady, voice clear. Wait, I have critical information. Tell the doctors this is very likely a toxin related to an experimental compound from Hayes Therapeutics. Project code R17. The substance is called cyclopentylamine derivative 47. The paramedics froze. One turned, startled. Are you sure? I nodded sharply. I interned in the company's lab. I know the signs. Without hesitation, the medic scribbled notes, relayed the message. I glanced at my parents. They stood frozen, ashen. Catherine stammered, Ethan, what are you saying? Don't slander your own parents like this. I turned, voice sharp as steel. Slander? Everyone here saw it. Father chose that bottle. And soon the doctors will confirm everything. If there's truly nothing to hide, then what are you so afraid of? The air went silent. Guests glanced at my parents with suspicion. Robert stood stiff, sweat beading. The ambulance sped away. Noah caught my arm, worried. Are you sure you want to go? I can go with you. The police will be here any minute. That's exactly why I have to go, I replied, eyes unwavering. If I'm not there, they'll twist the story. Make me out to be the liar. I have to be the one to speak the truth first. At the emergency room, chaos reigned. Doctors and nurses swarmed Liam. Screens showed erratic spikes, his heartbeat in disarray. A doctor frowned. Signs of chemical poisoning, likely an industrial compound. I stepped in. It could be R17, an experimental compound suspended because it caused arrhythmia and respiratory failure. Hayes Therapeutics studied it 2 years ago. The doctor looked up, startled. And how do you know this? I've been secretly investigating their lab for months. The moment Liam started sweating and his heart went erratic, I recognized the symptoms. This isn't random. It's the classic reaction. The doctor nodded sharply, ordering the experimental antidote protocol. Just then, police arrived. 2 officers requested statements. There is suspicion the victim was poisoned. We need information. My father pushed forward. This is a private family matter. My son only had a drop in blood pressure. No need for police interference. The officer cut him off. Doctors have confirmed signs of chemical poisoning. This is now a criminal matter. You and your wife will need to cooperate. Every eye shifted to my parents. They tried to hold steady, but their trembling hands betrayed them. I leaned toward Noah. It's begun. They won't escape this time. Liam remained unconscious, but with the antidote, his vitals slowly stabilized. The doctor turned to me. Your information saved his life. Without it, we would have lost critical minutes. I nodded silently. Inside, I felt both relief and a profound bitterness. Liam was saved, but the truth about my parents was now exposed. This was only the beginning. But at least tonight, the balance had shifted. The one who was meant to be the victim now held the truth and the evidence. While Liam lay motionless in intensive care, I sat waiting in the stark white hospital corridor. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from the police, lawyers, even reporters. News of Liam's collapse and suspected poisoning at the Hayes family's lavish graduation party had spread through Phoenix like wildfire. Within 24 hours, the FBI was officially involved. I knew it wasn't just the poisoning, it was the trail leading straight to the experimental compounds in Hayes Therapeutics labs. When the FBI and Phoenix police stormed Hayes Therapeutics headquarters with an emergency search warrant, I wasn't surprised. Box after box of files, hard drives, records were sealed and hauled away. It took only a few days for toxicology experts to confirm the compound in Liam's blood matched an experimental drug the FDA had already suspended due to suspected toxicity. What chilled me was that in every report the company submitted to regulators, there was no mention of such dangerous side effects. Then came an anonymous email to the FBI from a scientist who worked on the project. He wrote they were forced to alter data, hide adverse reactions, and still had the original reports. The FBI traced the lead, uncovering a hidden archive on the company's internal servers, troves of documents showing top executives, including my parents, ordered staff to falsify numbers, erase lab animal deaths, and bury liver toxicity warnings. My hands shook as I flipped through the copied files. All my suspicions were no longer theories, they were fact. But that wasn't all. The company's environmental division was exposed. In a warehouse outside the city, investigators found crates of untreated toxic chemicals buried directly in the ground. Shipping records were forged to deceive the EPA. I thought back to the polluted Gila River. Fury burned hot. The video Noah recorded was submitted to police. It caught the moment Catherine discreetly slipped something into the glass before Richard handed it to me. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but the movement was unmistakable. Forensic testing confirmed the glass contained traces of the same toxic compound. Sitting in the interrogation room, my voice stayed calm but unyielding. My parents have always seen me as a thorn. I refused to join the company. I refused to enable their corrupt deals. And that night, they didn't just try to ruin my reputation. They tried to end my life. The next day, the Arizona Republic ran a bold front-page headline, "Pharmaceutical CEO and wife charged in plot to harm son, fraud, and environmental crimes." Photos of Hayes Therapeutics headquarters sealed with FBI tape flooded news channels. CNN, The New York Times, every major outlet reported it. What began as a family tragedy erupted into a national shockwave about corporate ethics and the moral decay of America's elite. Social media exploded. Cruelest case of parental betrayal in a decade, justice for Ethan and Liam. I read the posts, hands trembling, eyes wet. 9 months later, at the federal courthouse in Phoenix, the trial began. My parents, in dark suits, sat at the defendant's table, faces cold, as if still in control. Their defense attorney shouted, "My clients are being framed. This was an accident. Ethan fabricated this to destroy his parents and seize their fortune." I sat rigid. But the prosecution was ready. They presented the video, toxicology results, falsified documents, testimony from employees. A map of environmental contamination lit up the screen, murmurs rippling. Liam, still frail, not fully recovered, stepped up to the witness stand. I gripped my hands. "I never imagined my own parents would do this," he said, voice breaking. "I trusted them. But now I know the truth. They poisoned me, and they meant it for Ethan." My mother tried to speak, it was all a misunderstanding. "My son is mistaken. We would never harm our own child." But then the prosecutor revealed the final blow, an email from my father. "Eliminate all adverse reaction data. If not, this project is dead." After weeks of testimony, the jury delivered its verdict. Guilty. On all counts, conspiracy to cause grave harm, financial fraud, document forgery, gross violations of environmental law. The judge struck his gavel, voice firm. The defendants are sentenced to long-term federal prison. All personal and corporate assets are hereby frozen. Hayes Therapeutics is placed under court supervision, pending dissolution. The courtroom erupted. I closed my eyes, a single tear slipping. Not pity, but because at last the truth was out. The fallout was immediate and brutal. My father got 15 years federal. My mother got 12. No parole until 85% served. Hayes Therapeutics was seized. Assets frozen, operations shut down. Over 2,000 employees lost jobs. I felt bad. But the company had been poisoning communities for years. The rot was too deep. The financial damage was staggering. Legal fees, fines, civil settlements. Their entire fortune wiped out. The mansion I grew up in was seized, auctioned off to some tech executive from California. I drove by once. Didn't feel a thing. My grandmother Ruth's trust fund was released to me the week after the verdict. $8 million. I moved into the lakeside house she'd left me, nothing fancy, just a wooden cabin with a porch facing Lake Pleasant. That first night, I sat outside with coffee, watching the sunset. Didn't check my phone once. First time in months I felt like I could breathe. Liam moved in with me after he got out of the hospital. The poisoning had done a number on his heart. Doctors said he'd need monitoring for at least a year, but he was alive, and something in him had changed. The first week, he came to me, looking like he hadn't slept. "I'm not finishing my business degree," he said. "I'm applying to law school, environmental law. I want to help people like the ones our company hurt." I didn't say anything, just nodded. That was enough. 3 months later, I used part of my inheritance to set up a foundation, named it after Grandma Ruth. It provides medical assistance to families affected by the contamination, plus scholarships for environmental science and public health students. We've helped over 200 families. The extended family drama was predictable. Aunts and uncles who'd ignored me suddenly wanted to reconnect. Cousins from childhood sending Facebook messages. All with the same energy, concern for my parents, questions about the inheritance, hints about how family should stick together. I blocked every single one. 6 months after sentencing, I got a letter from the federal prison where my mother was held. Handwritten, 3 pages. Apologies, explanations, requests for forgiveness. She said she never meant to harm me, that my father pressured her. She prayed for me. I read it once, then burned it in the fireplace. A week later, another letter, from my father. Different tone. No apologies, just accusations. Said I destroyed the family legacy, was ungrateful, would regret this. I didn't bother reading past the first paragraph. Straight into the fire. The letters kept coming for 2 months. Then they stopped. I assumed they finally got the message. Last month, Liam got his law school acceptance letter. Full scholarship to the University of Arizona. He's starting in the fall. Kid's actually excited about studying for once in his life. Wild how almost losing your life can change your priorities. It makes me wonder how many others out there are trapped in the shadows of their own families.